to the major breaking news last night from our very own Mark Halperin, breaking this story that according to multiple sources, Joe Biden plans to withdraw from the presidential election as early as this weekend, possibly Sunday or Monday. The speech reportedly being written right now by speechwriter John Meacham. Kamala Harris is said to be vetting multiple candidates for vice president, this all coming 1 month to the day from the start of the DNC in Chicago. Joining us now to break it all down, political analyst Mark Halperin, who is still in Wisconsin. Mark, good morning. You might have scooped the universe with this story yesterday. You forced other networks to report on what you have been following for the last several weeks. Take us through how this would work over the next few days.
Well, the president obviously has a lot to deal with. Right. First of all, he's got COVID. Second of all, he's furious at his friends on Capitol Hill, Nancy Pelosi in particular, who he's known for decades. They're the ones who have forced this issue somewhat publicly, but largely behind the scenes. And while the president was not interested in polling data because he's just seizing on the polling data that he says shows he can still win, the fundraising, which Nancy Pelosi has been a big part of, sending a message about, is the straw that broke the camel's back. Simply impossible to run for president when you have to raise hundreds of millions of dollars when the money's just not coming in. And so, although the circle is tightened, although there are a lot of decisions still to be made, particularly about how a convention would work under these circumstances, I've been told by multiple sources that we can expect the president to make his announcement as early as the weekend, perhaps next week, and to clear the way for Kamala Harris and perhaps others to compete for the nomination.
Okay, so does that mean Oval Office address like we saw Richard Nixon make in 1974 and LBJ make in March of 1968?
Could be. The timing and modalities of this are very much up in the air. Remember that part of the embarrassment, some say humiliation, that Joe Biden's going through is what's driven this, besides the poll numbers, is the belief on the part of a lot of Democrats, including friends of Joe Biden, that he's not up to public presentation. And so the people around him who want to turn this into a celebration of his decision, self-sacrifice in the view of Democrats who believe he can't win, want this announcement and the convention to be an homage to Joe Biden, not just his career and his accomplishments, but his selfless decision in their view to step aside. So this has to be good. He can't come out and give a doddering speech because that would be enshrined in history as reinforcing what proud Joe Biden doesn't want to be known for, which is being president of the United States and being unable to carry out the duties of the office.
Yeah,
so
Mark,
how they execute this is important, but they don't know yet.
I suppose he could record his speech, at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office and do something like that. Yeah. He also, let's be honest, this is, the media can't wait to get behind Joe Biden, the statesman, and celebrate his legacy and cover up what they have not been covering for the last 4 years. And that's the story of what's going on between Joe Biden's ears. And if he does have some form of dementia, is this part of the problem? Is this part of the issue that Joe Biden yesterday, maybe he was, Axios saying that Joe Biden's coming to the around of the idea of not running. But if you've got dementia, maybe you wake up today and you kind of forget all that. Could that be part of the issue they're having?
Well, it could be, but just as much a part of it. And this is why if what my sources told me yesterday turns out not to be exactly correct, for instance, he could decide to change his mind and be for Kamala Harris. Joe Biden has a history well before the decline in his acuity of being a horrible decision maker, really struggles whenever there's a difficult decision to be made to make it, and will always put it off. And part of why Nancy Pelosi and others felt they had to force the issue was they were worried that even if he sort of started to get the joke and realized there was no path to victory, that he would just delay, not just on the decision about whether to run,
right,
but on some of the subsidiary decisions. Should he stay on as president? Should he endorse Kamala Harris? So he could change his mind, but that wouldn't necessarily be a sign of or a product of his decline. It could just be Joe Biden's a bad decision maker.
Good point. Okay, so he doesn't endorse Kamala Harris. Is that deliberate? He doesn't want the stink of Joe Biden on Kamala Harris? Is he helping Kamala Harris by not endorsing her?
There are people around Kamala Harris who are furious at my report and have started to lobby the White House to say he must endorse. There are other people who I would say are the smarter people who say, why would Kamala Harris, who needs, if she's the nominee, to free herself as much as possible from the notion that this was some setup job, some inside job, and to free herself as much as possible from the Biden-Harris legacy agenda that's unpopular with a lot of voters? Why would she want Joe Biden's endorsement?